Battlefield 1's multiplayer looks awesome, and fans are clamoring for more. But you know what they're not clamoring for? Single player. But still, where is it? Why haven't we seen a lot of single player from Battlefield 1? What are you hiding, DICE? Does it suck? We have seen Battlefield 1's multiplayer pretty extensively at this point, with the whole Neebs vs. Stone livestream, but where's the single player been? Now, supposedly a few things from the game's single player have been shown, like this shot here, and here, and maybe here? I don't know. But nothing of the actual single-player experience has been shown, like how it will play, or what the story will be, or what type of game it actually is going to be. The Battlefield series has never really been known for its single-player component, and hell, the first few games in the series didn't even have a real single-player anyways. Battlefield 1942, Vietnam, and Battlefield 2 featured a tab called single-player, but it was really just a multiplayer match with bots you could play offline. Not that it was a bad time, I used to play the 1942 demo with bots all the time, just to have some fun, messing around with different stuff. The series' focus on multiplayer in its early titles is probably why today we still hear, Battlefield's just for multiplayer, who cares about the single player anyways? Battlefield saw its first real single player campaign in the game Battlefield 2 Modern Combat for the PlayStation 2, original Xbox, and later the Xbox 360. You might remember this game as the one that let you swap from soldier to soldier around the map. At least that's how I remember it. Modern Combat was also the first Battlefield game on a console, and in 2005, multiplayer gaming wasn't as huge on the console scene as it is today. With this, DICE, or their corporate overlords, must have wanted to include a single player so that gamers without an online connection could still buy the game. From this point on, the Battlefield series would include a single player campaign in most games that had console releases. Not counting Battlefield Heroes, which was like a web-based multiplayer online shooter, cartoony Team Fortress looking thing, or Battlefield Play for Free, because both of those were like weird spin-off things. We don't count those. We forget about those. So why do people still say Battlefield is just for its multiplayer? Well, probably because the Battlefield series has yet to see a good single-player option. I'm doing air quotes, but you can't really see it. A good single-player option. So many people say, why don't they just put the time and money that they put into single-player into the game's multiplayer? While I agree they shouldn't waste their time, I do understand why they do it. First off, look at Battlefield's competition, mainly the Call of Duty series.
What? It's not even a competition. Battlefield owns Call of Duty, you asshole.
You, dumb person on the internet who can't think for themselves. Shut up. Thanks. Call of Duty owned the gaming space as far as sales and players for years, so much so it influenced the gaming industry around it, an influence we are just now getting away from. Look guys, games with color! Second, it's a lot easier to sell a single-player game to people when you can get up on stage and show off an awesome-looking demo. Call of Duty has done this for years, and it's an easy way to make the game look better than it might actually be. And finally, a little reason, but still a reason, is all the players that don't play online, whether they can't or just don't feel like it. EA wants to hit as many people as possible, and while that still might be a small minority, it must be enough to keep putting money into it. Battlefield Bad Company was the next single-player we saw from the series, and it featured a much more open design, allowing players to use many different vehicles to approach mission goals from different angles. Some would say like a Battlefield game should be, but we'll get back to that. Also around this time, a little game came out you may have heard of, Call of Duty fucking 4, and this game completely changed what was popular in the gaming space for years to come, and Battlefield followed that popularity. While Bad Company 1 did come out after Call of Duty 4, it was already in development and was probably too late to completely change the single player. But you better bet they would be trying something new with their next game. And by new, I mean the same thing everybody was doing at the time. Everybody! Battlefield Bad Company 2 was the next game, and wow, it became much more linear, lost a lot of its comedy, and focused on set pieces like a lot of other popular games at the time. Then from there, it got worse. Battlefield 3 went with the world's most serious story ever. Look how serious we are. Look at it! It was honestly embarrassing how hard it was trying, and again, got further away from what you would think a Battlefield single player would be. Battlefield 4 is pretty much the same as Battlefield 3, a linear shooter with action set pieces like its competition, Call of Duty. And a ton of games at the time. Modern military shooters got overdone just like World War II shooters before it, and that's why we are seeing excitement from something new like Battlefield 1. I honestly only played through the Battlefield 4 campaign to see my name in the credits. Otherwise, I don't think I would have ever actually gotten through it. And Hardline seemed to be going in a good direction, at least with the demos they first showed off, showing something more like Far Cry where you could approach a compound from a whole bunch of different directions.
What the hell?
I honestly never played through it though. I was busy, I guess, and at that point I was kind of burned out on the whole modern FPS campaigns. Multiplayer was fun though. While these games aren't like the worst thing ever made, there hasn't been a single-player Battlefield that everyone agreed was really awesome. You might have your favorite or like some of them, and that's fine, but overall it could probably be done better. So with Battlefield 1 on the way, I was wondering, will this be the game we've been waiting for? So far they haven't shown much from the game's single player, and I don't know if it's because they're being smart about it or just lack confidence in it. They know we want to see multiplayer, so maybe just show us that, and maybe when the game comes out, we'll all be surprised, like, hey, single player's not bad. So what do I want to see in a Battlefield single player game? Earlier I said a Battlefield single player should be open and allow different ways to approach objectives, because that's what the series multiplayer is really known for. From the very little bit that we've heard about the single player, developers say the game will be much more open than previous Battlefield games. So it seems like they're going back to the ideas of Bad Company 1. Also, they have said you will play as many different characters throughout the campaign, which kind of reminds me of the old Call of Duty games that let you fight on different fronts as different people. The problem with this approach to me is that you never really get attached to these characters or care what happens to them because you bounce from one to the other so quickly. When Call of Duty switched to a more focused cast in Call of Duty 4, you instantly became more attached to these people that you fought with through the entire game. Another thing that really helped this game was it had well-written characters, mainly Captain Price. Without Price, I don't think the Call of Duty 4 single player would be remembered as fondly as it is. I actually recently played through 4 again for a video that I never ended up making. Let me know in the comments if you want a Call of Duty 4 breakdown thing, maybe for the remaster when it comes out. Anyways, Call of Duty 4 was the most engaging when you were working with your team, led by Captain Price. He had a lot of clever moments in the strategies he used to overcome the odds, and the fact that he was clever instantly made him more interesting. I know, I'm talking a lot about Call of Duty 4, but it's the game that the Battlefield series and most games after it took inspiration from, and I think it was a really quality single-player game. There's always one mission I think back to when I want an example of an interesting scenario. In this one mission, you need to defend a small area from an enemy force that has you way outnumbered. You don't have to win, but you just need to hold out long enough until your choppers get there. So instead of just holding up somewhere and shooting at the bad guys for a few minutes, Captain Price and his squad lay out a plan. First, you lay down on this little hill and get ready to set off C4 charges you placed earlier as a trap.
Do it. Kaboom.
Boom! Right out of the gate, you take out more guys than your entire squad. Then he says, keep firing! They think we're a bigger squad than we really are! Just a little insight on the situation and what the captain is thinking. Then once you are getting overran, you move back to a downed chopper that still has a working minigun, and use that to take down more enemies, using everything at their disposal. Another nice touch I always noticed was if you stay on the minigun for too long, they get mad at you and tell you to get out of there, come on.
Get off the minigun! We're falling back!
Trusting players just a little bit and not forcing them to get off in a cutscene or something. Then you move back again and blow up more C4 charges, and then retreat to a barn to use the one javelin you guys have to take out a couple of tanks. And you get my point. With a simple situation hold out, they did something creative, something that told you about the characters you were with.
We've just busted our asses to get to this LZ, and now they want us to go all the way back down!
So with this example, how does that apply to Battlefield and its single player? I mean, Call of Duty is a linear experience anyways. Linear, it's super linear. Look how linear it is. I actually don't mind a linear game. It tends to be thrown around as a negative term, but most of my favorite games are linear. The Uncharted games, Last of Us, I like Naughty Dog, Metal Gear Solid, until 5 at least. And actually, Metal Gear Solid 5 is a good example. Games usually rely on at least one aspect being so good that you can overlook the others. Either have a really great story to your game, or have such fun gameplay that its story can be overlooked. Metal Gear Solid 5 did that because the story kinda went to shit, but the gameplay was amazing, probably the best in the series. And the Far Cry games are like that for me too. The story is pointless, but it's just to get you on an island so you can get to the action. In the best case scenario, you get both of these aspects coming together, but Battlefield has yet to do either. Battlefield's stories are never that interesting to me, and it seems like a lot of players as well, and its gameplay doesn't do anything creative to make up for that. It's just shooting gallery after shooting gallery until the bad guys go away. You know what? Battlefield 3's campaign just popped into my head as I was writing this. There was one moment that stood out to me. That mission where you had to defend that bridge and more enemies came towards... Wait a minute. That was the co-op campaign in 3. Remember that thing where you could play with your friends? They had like a jet one that was... or a helicopter one that was impossible, and they had that one where you defended the bridge, right? I'm actually writing this. I can't remember whether or not it was in the single player or not. But that's how forgettable the single players are. So Battlefield just needs to create something memorable and not generic. Whether it be a more open design that puts you in the world to do things your way, or a linear experience. If it's open, give players options and interesting tools to play with. And if it's linear, then think about every moment and craft something unique to that mission that furthers the story. It's like the rule of action in movies. Pointless action is boring action. That's your Transformers just punching each other, or Deadpool fighting Wolverine on top of a nuclear reactor. Why? It looks cool. That's the equivalent to this building falling down in the first level of Battlefield 4. Why are we here? Because it looks cool. same exact thing would have happened if their chopper just got hit by a missile. Later Call of Duty games fall into the same trope, where you just gotta have big action things because it looks cool, but if you go back to Call of Duty 4, you'd be surprised how low-key it is compared to later games in the series. It used action with a purpose, and that's what makes scenes like this so emotionally charged.
Advised to seek medical attention at the first available opportunity.
And ones like this, just another explosion. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a comment below letting me know what you think Battlefield single players should be, or what do you want to see out of Battlefield 1 at least. It looks like we're getting a game that's more about the scenarios rather than, you know, an in-depth story because we're playing with a whole bunch of different characters. But hey, if they can make those situations interesting, I'm down for it. But thank you guys so much for watching. Please hit that like button if you want to support the show and subscribe to the channel if you're not. Also, check us out on Twitch where we just play video games and just do it. If you guys, all of you go over to Twitch and follow, then I don't have to say this bullshit at the end of every video. Most of you don't get here anyways. There's an analytics thing, which is kind of funny. I can see like how long people watch, and most people watch from the beginning all the way to the point where I say, thank you so much for watching, and it goes boom. It's pretty funny. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Boom!